Hi, Woodson. Welcome to Drag and Drop.
Thanks, Feroz, for having me. I've been listening to your podcast for a while. It's an honor to be on it.
It's a pleasure to have you. It's funny that when you were announced, as CEO, I was actually in Miami on the Partner Summit.
Oh, fun.
And I think one of your first things was from Lisbon to address the room.
Yeah, we did a little zoom in to say hey.
Yeah, so it's great to be recording here in Miami with you after kind of hearing your announcements. I really appreciate you.
What a great week to be in Miami. The weather's spectacular. We got a big crowd gathering for our One World Tour event. Very excited to be here. Glad you could be here.
Appreciate it. Thank you. It'd be good to, start with, obviously, AI is the topic of conversation everywhere.
How do you spell that? Just kidding.
AI being the conversation, everywhere, and obviously we've just finished the Lisbon conference as well. And there's AI native builders popping around, all the time. What do you feel truly is going to set OutSystems apart in this field?
Customers. I think there's so much hype around AI today. We're all convinced that AI is going to change absolutely everything in the universe. And obviously, incredible technology, incredible potential. But, where we focus at OutSystems is really on how do we apply this AI? How do we help our customers apply AI and deliver real business impact with the technology? And I think this is both kind of the approach that we take, and it is what customers value. So we got customers, thousands of customers with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of applications that run on our platform. And now they're able to very easily plug AI agents into the existing applications that they've built and drive huge productivity gains in very short periods of time. And so, that's what we're going to talk about all week here at this conference is just not so much, how cool are the new models and how are they going to replace all the work and all that stuff, but just really what are customers actually doing? And so I think that's how we stand apart. We focus on making customers successful, helping them experiment, iterate, deploy real AI in their business to drive results.
And, many enterprises, they use separate tools for, workflows, data, AI. What's the advantage of unifying it into one platform?
I think you're right. Most people use separate tools for all these things today. Tools, frameworks, platforms for each thing. I think if you just think about the challenge of agentic AI for starters, right? You're thinking about, I want agents that can operate reasonably autonomously, but have some human supervision. I want them to learn. I want them to get better. I want them to be able to take advantage of all my data for grounding, all the just exactly the right models for reasoning. And when you think about all the ingredients you have to put together to make that really work and to try things and iterate and experiment, to get it right? Because most people imagine a scenario where an agent's helping, but you don't quite get it right the first time of where do you need the human in the loop and which part are the agents really good at? And where, even if they're good, do you need to double check for compliance reasons or whatever? And so you're thinking about all the data you've got to access for grounding. You think about all the APIs, all the tools you need for action. You think about the workflows you need to govern all this. You need to think about the observability you need to know whether it's working or not. You need to think about the artifacts the agents are creating so that they can then re-ingest those and learn from them and use them as context engineering in future executions. And you think about all that stuff, and in most enterprises today, that's a dozen tools and systems. Yeah. And so that makes iteration really hard, right? Why? Well, okay, the data is in Snowflake, and we have a team that manages Snowflake, and that changes. That team releases every 3 weeks, right? Okay, and then we've got a tool where we're building, we're using an Aiton to build workflows, and that team releases every day. And then we've got another team that's building the user experiences for our humans in the loop, the applications they're using, or maybe those humans are even customers interacting with agents, and so thinking about my mobile app or whatever. And that team's releasing on a completely different schedule. And so at any point in time, what the heck are you testing? Right? And you're trying to iterate over the agent definition and get the prompts right. And you're moving across all these systems and all these teams, and coordinating that work is really hard. And with OutSystems, you can kind of do all that in one platform, which means you can do all of it in one lifecycle. And when you click the one-click publish button, everything goes from development into QA or from QA into production. And you know exactly what you're testing. Yeah. And when it works or doesn't work, you got one place to go to fix it, right? And I think that's really the advantage. And I'm not just making that up. Conceptually, that makes a lot of sense to me. That's just actually the feedback that we've had from customers. We launched Agent Workbench, which is the agentic capability inside the OutSystems Developer Cloud. It's now available for every customer on the planet, every developer too, right? Because we launched a personal edition, so anybody can go get this on our website. So just please do sign up if you haven't already. When we launched that as an early access program way back in June, like 114 customers dove in and started building, before we ever released it. The feedback they gave us was like, hey, well, how's it working? What do you like? What do we need to fix? Because like nothing's perfect on the first go. And customers were like, well, it's amazing having all of this capability in one platform, therefore one lifecycle, because we can do this iteration quickly. I like to be customer centric. I like to just base our messaging, but also our strategy, our product roadmap on just what our customers need. And they're like, this is the great thing about OutSystems and about Agent Workbench and about the fact that it's all kind of in a bundle, and gives them a lot of freedom. Now, we don't put everything in the bundle. Right? Like the LLM is not in the bundle, right? You bring whatever key you want for whichever LLM you want to access, whether that's a model you're running on premise in your own enterprise that you've trained with your own data, or if that's, a foundation model from OpenAI or Anthropic or Mistral, you pick your model, and our customers are picking the model that makes the most sense for kind of each agentic step. There's a lot of agentic workflows that customers are building today. Think about super common pattern in almost every kind of business, an insurance business, a bank, a university. All of these organizations have a big processes where they engage customers who, submit applications for something, an insurance policy, a bank account, admission to a university. And, they attach a bunch of documents to those things. And those documents all need to be evaluated in order to see, does this applicant for whatever meet our criteria for whatever? Largely that work is done by humans today, right? Looking at the same kind of stuff over and over again and making personal judgments over whether things are good or bad. Now, it turns out that kind of work is work that software agents and models are really good at. And so, our customers who are building these agentic workflows for intake of, for example, a mortgage loan application, they're using Anthropic for step one, where they're trying to extract data from a PDF that is your bank statement. They're using a different model because it turns out that OpenAI is a way better model to use, or ChatGPT 5 is a way better model to use for doing the data extraction over the pay stubs. Whatever, I'm making up this example, but these are the kind of decisions that our customers make in implementation. So they can switch easily between the models. This is another part of the iteration and the testing, right? So I build the framework, I build the workflow, I've got my grounding data, right? And then I can iterate with the models and see where I get the best result. And then the whole system keeps track of everything, keeps track in the history of the agent execution. What did the agents do? How did the agents reason over the inputs to make a recommendation, for example? How did the humans react to that when we brought the human in the loop and put it right into the app experience, and the operator could say yes, no, based on the recommendation of an agent? And then you go back, you can actually go look at the record and any of these agentic apps that our customers have built, and you go look at the record of the transaction, and you're like, how did this decision get made, right? And there's everything, the human work, the agent work, the reasoning, which model did it. And then that all becomes just another document in your grounding data, right? Like that turns out, now I have all that history. This is how the agent learns, right? Yeah. But it's all in one place, right, in our model. And that makes it easy for customers to iterate, for the agents to learn, and for everything to accelerate. And I think that's what's really kind of different about our approach, and what seems to be working well today. And so it's just like double down and do more, and get out there and talk to every customer about these advantages, every developer about how easy it is, to get started. And of course, the benefit of working with these technologies is like once you get started, man, the learning starts to pile up fast, right? And you're able to go faster and do more and deliver more value. And that seems to be the cycle we're in right now.
Yeah. And obviously, a lot of the existing customers and developers have had access since one in Lisbon.
Yeah.
But speaking about potential customers,
Right.
obviously your sales teams would be pushing Agent Workbench. What's the feedback from that perspective?
So first of all, like everybody in every company everywhere who's in any kind of IT role, managing application portfolio or a data strategy or an AI strategy is kind of desperate for progress and to demonstrate real value. And I think what's working in our conversations with net new prospective companies is just these incredible stories of progress. At the one conference, we told the story of Travel Essence, who had, taken an existing application, happened to have been built on our O11 platform, but an existing application and added by flipping on ODC, by turning on Agent Workbench, by connecting the data with Data Fabric, integrating into the user experience, and rapidly in like 3 weeks, able to turn around a system that had been hyper manual and a key job for that company. They planned luxury travel. They took that 2-hour workload that a human being was doing, like booking all the reservations, researching the right restaurants for the customers, make the full itinerary, and then turn it into something beautiful they could present to a customer because they're competing. They're trying to get you to book with them. And took that process from 2 hours to 2 minutes by putting, I think 4 or 5, can't remember exactly, agents into the process. One that just specializes in booking hotels. Another one that specializes in reviewing restaurant recommendations and finding a right match for the preferences and the customer profile. And a series of these agents, and they've got this very cool demo. You probably have seen it, where you can actually watch the agents like arguing with each other about what makes the best itinerary for the customer. And I think we tell stories like this, or we talk about Thermo Fisher, completely different industry, scientific instruments. Their equipment is used in like laboratory settings where every minute, every hour is hyper valuable, to their end customers. And when something's wrong with any of the equipment, or even if people don't understand how to use it for the experiment or the process they're working through, like the time to resolution of customer inquiries is hypercritical. And so they've built a system now where they've got a series of agents who actually do all of the research as a new inquiry comes in from a customer, and in real time, and before an agent can pick up the phone or review it, they've already gathered all the background detail, looked at all of the known problems, analyzed everything exactly how it applies to the problem in question, looking at that own customer's history, and they're able to present a resolution to a human agent, right, instantaneously. So by the time you pick it up, you can much faster resolve the customer question. Many customer questions can be resolved without even human interaction. The customers can deal directly with the agent, and then you use your specialists and your experts to really do the hard work on the complicated issues where the answer is not obvious to the agent. And so I think when we tell these stories, when we illustrate the potential for getting there quickly, when we talk about the value proposition of doing it all fast, because of the way the integrated software development lifecycle works in the platform, customers get pretty excited about that. And they do love the idea that it doesn't have to be fragmented across all these systems. That said, everybody's dealing with, a complex architecture already. Nobody's got a clean slate to work from. And that's where accelerators like Mentor, our agent to help customers build things in the first place, can really help, because there they can use AI not only as the thing they build, right? Like that's kind of the agent side of it, but it's also how they build it. And that's the Mentor side of it. And so that can be a real accelerator for helping customers get started. And then all the cool stuff like, Data Fabric and other things that allow you to easily connect your whole enterprise and all your existing assets into the platform really are accelerators that help people get started quick.
And, speaking of Agent Workbench, and it's that, correct me if I'm wrong, version 1 of Agent Workbench, were there any challenges that, you had to overcome to get it to where it is for V1?
Yeah, it's actually reasonable to think about it as a V2, because really AI Agent Builder, which we shipped a year before and which was shipped through the Forge and was really more on the platform than in the platform. So we learned a lot from that and early customer work, and that really informed how we built into the platform. But I think we learned a lot, right? And part of what we've learned was about how we enable the agents and how important it is to string together agents in these agentic workflows that allow you to really have a governed process. It's like you can, and to blend kind of the probabilistic work of agents with the deterministic work of like existing business applications. This was a really super important learning, I think. So many of our customers in regulated industries, let's just go back to one of these application processes. So pick insurance. Insurance is a highly regulated industry almost everywhere in the world, certainly here in the US. And the regulations, by the way, are completely different in every state.
Yeah.
And so there are very highly regulated things that go down to the level of the communications. Like we need compliance officers to approve every communication that we do with an applicant or a claimant about their agreement, about the policy and about their claim. And so it's very important to use templatized communication, right? So think about that as there's an email template, or even, a lot of this stuff still happens through the snail mail. Yeah. So even the stuff that goes into the post, right? And with a platform like OutSystems, you get not only the ability, right, to have the AI agent reason, recommend a decision. It could, yes, write you the email, but you're going to get a different email every time, by the way, right? Like same inputs, different output every time. That's what we mean by probabilistic or non-deterministic nature of AI. And so you want the recommendation, maybe even the decision out of the agent, but then when it comes to the implementation, it's got to follow the process, right? And when you have a platform like OutSystems that has the capability both of a rules-based, deterministic flow, and you can blend into that these very efficient, very fast, autonomous, but probabilistic agents to do the reasoning, right? You kind of get the best of both worlds. You can still meet all your compliance requirements, right? You can still exercise the muscle that you've learned and hardened over years of building your deterministic process, and you can weave AI in to the right spots to help drive acceleration, productivity, better customer experience. And that's pretty awesome. And so I think some of those things are the things that we started to learn with AI Agent Builder and baked into Agent Workbench.
You spoke about vibe coding in Lisbon, and there's a big hype around vibe coding at the moment. How do you feel vibe coding will empower developers rather than just replace them?
Yeah, great question. I think vibe coding, we're talking about it a lot, and there are a lot of examples of what we mean. For some people, we mean cursor, right? Yeah. In the professional developer IDE, right? In some cases, we're talking about tools like Lovable or Replit, and there's a spectrum there, but like some of those tools are like aimed really at people who are not developers at all. Yeah. They are just people with a business problem. I'm like, hey, I'm a marketer and I need a landing page for my campaign. So I think we see kind of vibe coding, broad strokes, is like appealing to a wide variety of like skill levels when it comes to software development. One end of that spectrum, what you have is, empowering a lot more people to be software developers, right? Like I think at some level, when my kids first started going to university, there was a broad theory that like kind of everybody needed to study coding because software engineering basics were going to be kind of a critical, at least, thought process that people needed to be able to go through regardless of what discipline they would be in. I think maybe this phenomenon of, AI-based code generation will change that a bit, right? In terms of whether that's still is necessary in the future. But then at the far end of the spectrum for professional developers, and let's be clear, professional developers use OutSystems. Like OutSystems is used largely by professional developers, right? And we're not a platform that appeals to the marketer trying to build their campaign stuff from scratch. There, the process of building, of coding, of developing software is much more about, and especially in the enterprise, is much more about assembling parts, right? And writing the code that makes them work together than it is about starting from scratch, right? There are very few projects you get to do in a large enterprise where you're basically doing clean slate work. You're always like, okay, we already have existing data. and data structures. We have existing APIs for, customer activation or for order management or whatever the thing is you're building. And so, you've got to figure out how do you put all these things together. And I think what's really exciting for professional developers is what's emerging in systems like OutSystems and Mentor, which is a enterprise context-aware AI. My AI agent, Mentor, knows about all my existing data structures, knows about all of my existing APIs, knows about all of the logic and workflows in my system, and of course, increasingly knows about the agents, right? And so when I'm building and using AI as a tool for developer productivity, I am not only getting the benefit of the AI that understands how to do the work of assembling the components, but also understands the components that matter to assemble what I need. And I really do think this is the giant leap forward from AI for engineers developing software for in the enterprise context.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's kind of the thing that I am excited about when I think about the impact of vibe coding for the real pros. Maybe the other angle on that, my son's a software engineer, professional. He's probably 4 or 5 years into his career, working for an AI startup. Uses Cursor every day, right? And he's like, I love it, love the AIs. The AIs in my IDE take the 80% of my work that was always the easy part, and they made it a lot easier. But there's this 20% of my work, which is the hard part of coordinating with other teams and integrating to other systems and all those things. Where it's just it doesn't help me at all. In fact, sometimes it kind of screws me up because it basically takes a clean slate approach to most things. And so, the AIs will get better at all this stuff over time, like context engineering, right? I mean, vibe coding is cool. Context engineering is really cool, right? It's really what it's all about. And I think accelerating context engineering is fundamentally about platforms, right? When you have a platform in the enterprise that understands your enterprise, you get an amazing context to incorporate into everything that you build. And I think that's really going to be a huge productivity breakthrough for engineers taking on these AIs to help them, build better things, build them faster, harden the things that they build, and really take advantage of all the existing assets.
Yeah, and many boards are looking for real ROI on AI. So how do you prove cost to value with the edge of OutSystems?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, I talk to a lot of CIOs, and I think now we were kind of keeping a spreadsheet of all my CIO meetings. And I think last week I was in the Netherlands, and I think I got to 84 CIO meetings since, I'm 6 months into the job. And, I talk to CIOs and I'm like, tell me about your priorities with AI. And they're like, well, I'll tell you the first thing is my priority is not to rebuild everything I have. All this coming at me is I'm changing everything, start over, clean slate. And they're like, that's not my reality. I'm a regulated enterprise. I've got all these hardened systems. I've been through my SOC 2 certifications, and I've got, HIPAA and whatever. Everybody's got the standards they're trying to meet. And, I don't want all my systems changing overnight because somebody wrote a new prompt. That's not what I want. But what I do want is I want to leverage the power of AI to build agentic systems on top of my existing assets. And so I think when it comes to really getting significant ROI from investments in AI, the shortcut at the board level, but for the CIOs in the room, but also of course for the tech leaders, the developers who are building, is to say, how do I get leverage from my existing assets and just turn on the AI on top, right? And that's got challenges with it, right? You got to okay, what am I feeding to the AI? How secure is the data that I'm feeding the AI? How do I do that through a framework that allows me to maintain the appropriate controls and to make sure that I'm not unleashing into the wild all my proprietary data? We want to use, for context engineering, often in these agentic systems, we want to use very confidential stuff, confidential stuff about you as my customer and all of your personal records that need to be factored in there for context engineering, anonymized appropriately, right? But I want to have control over that. And every time that happens in my enterprise, I want to run it through a platform that enforces my standards for that. So how do I standardize my approach to context engineering so that it is governable, observable, manageable, alertable, right? If things go wrong. And then where the entire history of all of it is maintained in a way that both allows me to demonstrate compliance, but also to learn and optimize, right? You look at what happened, the Anthropic paper just pushed last week or the week before about the use of these AIs to drive cyber attacks, right? At an unbelievable scale. And the AI didn't know it was doing what it was doing, right? It was assigned a number of discrete tasks by an orchestrating agent, if you will, operating across those LLMs. Now, how do you set yourself up to identify patterns of like that kind of thing happening inside your enterprise? Even for security reasons, you got to have somewhere where it's all going through a standardized approach and platform approach. And that's where we really think the opportunity lies ahead. How do we govern, orchestrate all of this agentic work, all of the AI use in your enterprise so that you can, frankly, meet your obligations and maintain trust with your customers, your employees, your stakeholders? And that's really the advantage of a platform like OutSystems.
And there's conversation around, is AI the next bubble? How are you building the platform?
I think AI is quite clearly the current bubble.
Yes.
The question is, how long do we have in this bubble run in this particular shape? But I think AI is also going to be an important component of every future bubble. Like AI is here to stay. Like AI is not going away. This bubble that we're in right now, where we see trillions of investments in data centers and energy infrastructure to support them, and the development of these incredible, rich models, all of that, which is extraordinarily capital intensive, right, is being fueled by a bit of a mania right now. And I think that mania is fueled by the understanding that there will be a few winners. Like, we're obviously NVIDIA, clearly a winner in the game, but at the model layer, right? Like, it's kind of assumed, and I think rightly so, that there are not going to be 1,000 winners in the foundation model space. There's going to be a couple, and being the winner is going to deliver huge returns over time. But we're going to hit the skids on this whole wave of investment here right now as it becomes clear that not all these investments can win. We'll see some dramatic change in our industry over the next 18 months. I don't know, is it tomorrow? Is it next week? Is it, a year from now? And it may hit different levels of the stack at different times, but it will also be part of every other bubble. And I think that's kind of the important thing. Like, this is new foundation for us. And the infrastructure being built today, using all of this investment capital, all the private equity, all the venture funding that is coming in, just like, in the prior, I don't know how many in the audience will remember, but like the first, internet bubble built the telecom infrastructure that we all benefit from for the last 20 years, right? It was all built by that kind of wave of investment, and companies like Nortel and others that, didn't even survive the phase. But we're doing that now, and that means that we will all have access at a much more reasonable cost per transaction, if you will, per inference, to technology that's going to make this much more valuable for enterprises. And, there's just no way to project from the current rates of monetization in enterprise AI. I think on the consumer side, it's a little different, but on the enterprise side, you can't project the current rates of monetization and say they ever pay for the current capital investment, right? Like, or any reasonable investment time horizon, and every venture investor or private equity investor has a life of the fund, right? So they got to think about returns in a period. And so I think it's gonna burst. How significant will that be? We can't know for sure, but it's going to leave us with a lot of infrastructure that the enterprise customers of the world will then be able to tap into through platforms like OutSystems to deliver real business value. And so we're just excited to be working with so many pioneers in this space among our customers today, already building these killer agentic systems. And I think they're really well placed to take advantage of all this investment.
Yeah. And speaking of your customers, OutSystems has such a range of customers across different industries, where some other players are a bit more focused on specific industries. Do you feel, does that affect the growth of OutSystems, or do you feel it doesn't change anything?
I mean, diversity is a strength, I think, in most contexts. I think certainly in this one. I think, I started 6 months ago. Even before I started, I talked to 17 customers before I took the job, and then, hundreds since. And every time I'm just shocked to learn about the things that they're building with OutSystems. I talked to the largest or third largest reinsurance company on the planet. What are you most proud of that you've built? Oh, we run our entire global financial consolidation on OutSystems. I'm like, holy cow, that's not what I think of as, or what I think a lot of people think of as like a low-code application platform product. Most people think low-code, it's like the, Microsoft Power Apps departmental little thing. We built it because the IT people wouldn't pay attention to us. But no, here we have enterprise systems. I met last week, I was in the Netherlands last week. I met with Vopak, who's, a big customer there of ours. They run like shipping terminals for like liquid stuff. So think about fuels and chemicals and stuff. And so imagine big ships pulling into ports, unloading these, pumping all these chemicals around, getting them into trucks and off to customers around the, Rotterdam's a big port for them. So, shipping them all over Europe from there. I'd met with them previously at the one conference in Lisbon, and they'd been explaining to me this application. They'd built a terminal management system. So how are they going to run this complex operation with ships and tanks and pipes and, pumps and by the way, customs agents and government entities and regulations and all these things happening, all, spread across these incredibly complex terminals that they operate, where safety is an enormous concern, right? Like flammable materials everywhere and all kinds of chemical hazards. So how do they do all that safely? I was like, you've got to show me this system. So when I was in the Netherlands, I got this chance to sit down with the team who built it, and they were walking me through, like demoing the life of the scheduler in the port, who is like, okay, this truck has to be here at this time and this ship there, and then we move this thing. Oh, we can't move it through that pipe because that one hasn't been cleaned since the last kind of chemical went through it, and those are incompatible. And they've built an application that manages the complexity of all of that stuff. And they're like, there is no off-the-shelf software for managing this problem. It doesn't exist. Like, all we can do is build on a platform like OutSystems, or we could custom code it from scratch, right? But there, the challenge is really maintainability. When a platform like this, I can build something incredibly complex. I can resource that project, right? Because you're in the resourcing game here. Like, I can resource that project because I can hire talent from the market who knows and understands this platform, who can help me evolve. They come in, they see the thing, they're like, okay, visually it explains itself. I understand what this whole thing does. I can get in here and add value and help you iterate, or bring in a partner who can help with on a project basis with some of that work. And so that's just all a super valuable part of this proposition around a platform like OutSystems that sometimes you don't really see at the beginning when you're just thinking, about one project and one team and, one deliverable, but really becomes hyper valuable over time for these large enterprises.
Yeah. And, you spoke about, since you announced, you've been racking up the miles, traveling everywhere, meeting customers, meeting partners. Before you started, there's been some positive, some negative conversation around OutSystems. What were some of the common challenges that you heard about when speaking to customers? Yeah,
so many things. One is resourcing projects, right? Like, just to be clear, I would say 4 out of 5 customers I talk to, part of what they want to talk to me about is resourcing projects, right? And I think for all the, look, we have a lot of customers who are operating in industries where they're competing for technical talent, like we all are, right? It's a hyper-competitive world still today. And they're like, how do I find the resources who can help me achieve my vision, right? And my goal, and they're all excited about, the potential productivity improvements around AI and stuff, but there's still, we need skilled developers who understand systems architecture, right? Who understand user experience, who understand how to build, how to tie how systems integration. So I'd say probably one of the most common challenges I hear is around resourcing, which is why we're super excited to have people like you in our ecosystem, helping us ID the right talent, hire and onboard that talent, get that talent trained to be able to deliver on the requirements for each of these projects and each of these teams that customers are trying to build. I mean, it's certainly been others, so that's a common challenge. Yeah. The company has, over the last few years, done a lot of technical innovation.
Yeah.
But some of that innovation was designed in such a way that kind of assumed customers would make giant leaps to take advantage of it. Well, take that Vopak, that complex system you built to run a terminal management system, and look at all this cool new technology we have today. Please move it all to this new version of our platform.
Yeah.
And I think what I learned, and I had 100 customer conversations where customers are like, that's not what I want. Like I said earlier, nobody's looking to reinvent. Yeah. Everybody wants to iterate on top of what they have. And so we've made a huge pivot in our product strategy to say that our OutSystems Developer Cloud platform is not a new destination for the things that you've already built. It's a layer in your stack that allows you to take advantage of cloud native as an architecture, of AI agents, of Mentor for agents to help you build and accelerate the development process. But it works with everything that you've already created on OutSystems 11. And so we're integrating and unifying the platform capabilities across these architectures to allow our customers to get the best of both worlds, right? Get as maximum value from what they have already created, but also move forward into this agentic world and build their agentic future with OutSystems. And so that's another area which has been another huge topic of conversation with so many customers. And then I would just say it's like the appetite around agentic systems. Everybody wants that. Everybody wants to get there fast. Everybody wants to prove value. And so those are the three things I talk about most, I think, with customers.
Yeah, yeah. And, speaking about the unified platform, as someone who speaks to your customers globally, I think the end of life on O11 was a big issue,
I should say that again. Every time I talk to anyone, I should say we've extended the life of OutSystems 11 forever. That was just a very easy choice for me. I wasn't emotionally committed to any path. I was just listening to customers. What do they want? Yeah. They want OutSystems 11 forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they want it to get better, by the way. They want enhancements. And so that's also a big part of what we've announced at the one conference. We'll reflect that again here in Miami this week.
Yeah, I think that was a real positive from Lisbon, because obviously in your short time of starting and then having that decision made, I think was a real positive on people who came into the keynote and left the keynote. Workbench was great, Mentor was great, but I think the unified platform was definitely, from people I spoke to after, they were very impressed that in the short period of time you've made that decision and they don't have to worry about end of life.
Well, I'm just deeply grateful for all the customers who made it so easy for me to make decisions by telling me what we should do, right? I'm a big believer that our customers have very, very strong opinions on what we should do. I think our job is to deliver on those things. You've talked about the Lisbon conference a lot. Obviously, that's our big annual event. 265 people, I think, this year, which was bigger than we expected. Yeah. So apologies to anyone who was stuck. There was 500 people stuck outside the door trying to get through the queue as we were trying to start the keynote. So we'll plan ahead better next time. But the response there, I think, to these messages was a very positive, and I think largely because they're very customer-centric messages, right? There's hey, if you bet your career on this platform, you want wild enthusiasm about the platform. You want the things you build on the platform to last forever. You want to be able to constantly innovate. You don't have to go backwards and reinvent, and you want to be able to take advantage of the latest tech. So I think that was our message, and a lot of what we delivered, right? A lot of these things we've delivered in production, and there's many more of them to come. But it's been great, and this community is so supportive, and we just got an amazing thing going here, and we need to keep investing in our community, and we need to help our community invest in careers. Thank you for the work that you're doing to help us build the community, educate the community about the latest technology. So fired up to see more than 1,500 developers who've gone and done the Agent Workbench certification and turned themselves into agentic developers overnight. I think we're up to almost 10,000 people who've signed up for the ODC Personal Edition now and are building their agentic future with OutSystems. It's awesome.
Yeah. And speaking of, access to ODC and Workbench is obviously a big investment for OutSystems.
Sure, yeah.
So what was the motivation? Obviously, you're already announcing the unified platform, which you could have just announced on its own, and I think it'd be a real positive. But what was the decision about adding that layer as well?
It's a heck of a lot easier for people to actually touch and feel things than to just have them described.
Yeah.
I think the benefit, what I'm seeing is that customers who get their hands on, developers who get their hands on Agent Workbench are like, oh, yeah, duh, we should be doing a lot of this, right? Whereas if we're just talking about it, right, and it's, let me show you my slides and talk about the benefits, what you get is a lot of like, well, there's a lot more to consider here and we'll think about all these things. But you actually show it in action, you get your hands on it and you're like, okay, this makes sense, which is why we're doing cool things, right? Like the Agents versus Zombies contest at Halloween that was so cool and gave so many developers an excuse to just take a minute before the Halloween to get out there, get their hands on it, and learn to build agents. And I think that, we got to do more and more of that as part of how we roll out. And it starts with access to the technology.
Yeah.
So everyone, anywhere, who wants to get their hands on OutSystems, Agent Workbench, Mentor, sign up on the website for a personal edition. It's available to anyone at no cost. If you don't use it for a long time, we'll send you an email tell you we're shutting it off because, obviously it costs money to keep it running if you're not using it. We're being aggressive about that. It makes a lot of sense for us to expose more customers to the platform. And then, of course, we also made the ODC environment available, like the commercial instance of that for every paying customer, right, of OutSystems 11. So you can, not only do we say you can use these things together, we also said you're entitled to use these things together, right? And that everything that you have as an entitlement in your O11 environment, you can reuse in the ODC environment, or you can split it between the two. You kind of make your own choices on what makes sense for you. But regardless of those kind of deployment choices that you make, we're going to take you to the future.
Yeah. And you spoke about, customers and obviously resourcing and finding talent and building their own teams. And, even there's many partners in every region to help customers get off the ground. But why do you think it's important for customers to really focus on eventually building an internal capability?
Some capacity internally. Yeah. First I'll say we have an amazing partner network. This company is incredible in that regard. This community is incredible in that regard. I would say I have been wildly impressed by a lot of the people who work for me, employees at OutSystems. But wow, I am blown away by our partner community. And so many people who are advocates for the community, who are champions of the product and technology, but who have also leaned in really hard to help with feedback for me and for our teams to understand how we need to help solve for there. So I love our partner network, and it's absolutely essential for our business, and there's no way we could grow without them. But our customers, the answer to your question is really not what I think, it's what our customers think. Yeah. And our customers think that it's awesome to have the flex capacity to go to the partner network, to have teams they can work with who have worked at other similar companies, solved other similar problems, can go faster, bring best practice. But eventually, they want to bring in teams who can give them agility. There's a level of agility that you get with a team that's on staff versus a team that's accessible to you through a statement of work. Yeah. As fast as AIs can now help us write statements of work, right? It's still a procurement process kind of every time you want to do a thing. And so, there is a whole lot of reasons why you want some of the resources on your team to do the things that are the iterative changes like we talked about earlier, right? Mm-hmm. So I do see there's a lot of value, and customers tell me they see a lot of value in building those teams, but they also need help building the teams, right? And so it's great to have partners in the ecosystem like you who can help with the education and the recruitment of those and the team building for those kinds of centers of excellence or communities of practice or whatever they call them inside their organization as they bring these teams together.
Yeah. And, with you being from the US. The US is a big market. Obviously, OutSystems is a global business.
Yeah.
The US is a market. Even, I've moved here recently to help create awareness, grow the ecosystem here. But from your point of view, and even when I still speak to developers, they may not have heard of OutSystems.
Yeah.
So what's your goal with creating more awareness for OutSystems for enterprises in the US?
I mean, I totally agree. Like, OutSystems is a company that has built itself on word of mouth around and technology evangelism.
Yeah.
Like, people who use the product love the product. They love what they build with the product. And they go out and they tell other people about the product, and they recruit their friends to join them on projects. And the ecosystem has kind of grown very organically. I think we compete in a world today where, just frankly, there's so much noise that like we need to accelerate by very deliberately driving awareness for the brand. And so we're also, as much as we're investing in technology and in the community and in the talent, we're also investing in the brand through conversations like this one.
Yep.
Thank you very much. But also through, more traditional advertising channels to really get the word out about the platform, and also about this kind of shift in focus, right? From, yes, high-powered, low-code, 24 years, amazing trajectory. But what everybody needs today is an AI, an agent platform, right?
Yeah.
How do I think about and how do we position for what everybody's looking for today? And how do we properly reflect kind of the investments and the use cases that are driving what our customers do with OutSystems today? And it's all about agentic systems and building with AI.
Yeah. And, a few people I've spoken to who've interacted with you before said you don't like the term low code for OutSystems. Would you believe it's something different now?
I'll say this. For the first dozen years of the life of OutSystems as a company, that word didn't exist. So It's not like OutSystems was built as a low-code platform. Yeah. OutSystems was built to solve the problem that complex enterprise custom software development was always years late and way over budget. That was what Paolo Rosado set out to solve when he started the company. When the term low-code came along, which I think was coined by a Forrester analyst, and kind of suddenly there became a bit of a tornado around that term. And suddenly CIOs were thinking, I need a low-code platform. Yeah. And so the company positioned as a low-code platform. But my view is that those words, which I think, just let's start with like low as a term, like it's just not inspiring, right? It makes you look down, doesn't make you look up, right? And so I think there's just like a psychological challenge to the terminology. And so that's one thing. But I also think we jumped into a pool with a lot of technology platforms that were way less capable of what OutSystems was capable of because of the problem OutSystems had been first built to solve. In that space, it worked to our advantage. Like, it drove a lot of growth for OutSystems, and it was relatively straightforward for OutSystems to be in the top right corner of the Magic Quadrants and the Forrester Waves, because we had a platform that, from a capability standpoint and a feature standpoint and an enterprise readiness standpoint, was just way better, right, than all the other things. And so we could always be up there, and that helped because we could then go into everybody else's sales cycles, every other vendor in the space who was trying to sell to a customer. We could jump in and be like, well, we can top that, right? And so that helped. It helped the company grow. But I think it also discounted, in broad public awareness, discounted the value proposition of OutSystems in a way, right? Because we were kind of positioned down with the crowd of others, and people are like, we have a low-code platform. It's Microsoft and Power Apps, and we give that to departments that don't really matter to the strategy, so that they can futz around on the edges and build little productivity apps. And so in the minds of a lot of customers or potential customers, that's their perspective of low code. They're not thinking about global financial consolidation for the reinsurance company, or the complex terminal management system for, the ports. They're thinking about little trivial departmental apps. And so it's not like I don't like the word. It's just like I don't think it does service to the actual richness of the platform. And I think today everybody's looking for AI and agents, and we need to be positioning around those capabilities, which are, of course, the core of what we're focused on building today, and where we're able to rapidly deliver a ton of enterprise value.
And finally, you're 6 months in, we're wrapping up the year, going into 2026. Jumping
Already?
ahead.
Wow.
Yeah. What would a successful 2026 look like for you? Obviously, you'll complete a year in May, I think, next year, or maybe a bit.
Sure.
So around that.
Yeah, I mean, a successful 2026 for me looks like a avalanche of customers just jumping into agentic systems and building their agentic future with OutSystems. Agent Workbench adoption going through the roof, thousands and thousands of more developers building on ODC, taking advantage of this technology, and around the world, right? You talked about OutSystems as a global company, very global company. Today, huge customer base, installed base in Europe. Asia Pacific is a huge region for us, and not just Japan. Like, Japan's an awesome market for us, but so is Singapore and Malaysia and Australia and the Philippines. Like, we have an amazing global business. And so helping customers in every corner of the globe make the leap to agentic systems, drive real productivity and business impact this year. Ultimately, I want to measure our success, not purely in adoption of our platform, but in the business value generated by our customers from the work they do with our technology. And so that's what I want to see.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to speak to me, Woodson. It was really great to speak to you, hear how the first 6 months have gone. And, I look forward to hopefully speking to you again in the future.
Feroz, let's do it. And we don't need to wait 6 months. Sure. We can do this again sometime. I've got a lot of stories that I'd love to tell. And, it's an amazing company and lots of incredible progress in this community. And we should keep talking.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, Woodson.
Cheers.
Thank you.